Hello people of the internet, it is I, name BT. Welcome back to another video. It's been a long while since I've done this, but I shall just be doing this for this profile and maybe one other profile on a date that is not a primary video day, but maybe another. But today, guys, I'm bringing you a weather painter profile that I've been playing around in my remote duels. And of course, I'm borrowing a human's pair of hands today. Which human? I don't know. I bought this online. They're really nice hands. But anywho, guys, I'm here today to show off my weather painters that I adore so much since they got the recent support from the other profile, or from the most recent set. Now I'm going to tell you straight out, this isn't a very competitive build, but it is still a very enjoyable build that can counteract a few good decks here and there. Now anywho, let's get straight into it by showing off the main deck. And I'm finally having a better time since I have a camera stand this time with me. So starting us off, of course we have 3 copies of the Weather Painter Snow. So of course Snow is going to be your main starter of the deck. Normal summon her, place a Weather Painter Spell Trap card, which will more than likely be the Weather Canvas, Snow Canvas effect on Snow, banish her, add the Weather Report, which we will show later. After her, we are playing 2 copies of Aurora. So I do believe I posted a profile on this a good while ago. I only played 1 Aurora, but I'm playing 2 now since with the new Weather Report plus Rainbow, it's much easier to get her out, and plus you can easily just swap her out with Rainbow on your opponent's turn, set her up, she's protecting your entire back row, and then you also have all of your multiple negates. So while she's face up on the field, your opponent can't target or destroy face up the Weather Canvas Spell and Trap cards. After that, we have the new MVP of the deck, which is also a new ratio, is 3 Cloud Painters. So Cloud is probably the most important weather painter now in the entire deck, maybe even more so than Snow, because when the weather card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target up to 2 the weather canvases in your graveyard and place them face up in your spell and trap zone. Meaning that if you would link summon with them, or if you would send them away with Thunder's effect, you can get back to the weather cards and recycle them. And she is going to be your primary card for most of your plays and most of the way you're going to be recovering. She's a really good right now, and you really want multiple copies of her. At least 2 to 3 copies. Up next, we're playing 3 the Thunder Painters. So, of course, Thunder's here because he is technically a searcher for the deck. Send a continuous the weather card from your spell and drop card zone to the grave. Place another continuous spell and drop card from your deck to your field. So this will trigger the Weather Painter Cloud, or you use this to search out Thunder, Canvas, Rainbow, or of course Snow. Then finally, for Weather Painters, we have 1 copy of Sun. I am only playing 1 copy of this now since the field spell does let you use spell and drop cards for link material, and Cloud is now recycling more cards. There's lots of reasons to play him, but he is just here because he is an extra body that can float himself or bring him back if you ever need it. But he is not completely necessary in the current profiles or many of the decks, but he is here because he is a weather by name. So that is it for the Weather Painters. I'm still unfamiliar with how to place cards. Up next we have 3 copies of Gamma, and of course the 1 Cypher and Driver. So basically the theory behind this is if you would have the Weather Painter on the field and the Weather Painter Snow Canvas, you can banish themselves for cost for something like the Snow Canvas to search a card, and your opponent would activate a monster effect from hand. To that effect, your board will now be wide open, you can activate Gamma, summon them from hand. Then of course, finally for our last monster, we got 3 copies of Dimension Shifter. So this deck isn't really prone to having its spell and drop cards banished, but you can still have multiple lines of play through having all cards in the graveyard banished or not. This is more of something that you want if you're going to go first or second against most decks. Sadly, in my remote duels, I've always tend to activate this against Thunder Dragon, which I'm really disappointed about, but it does affect most of his other engines. But still, Dimension Shifter is a really good card. It's a really nice floodgate to have, considering that, especially now with the new Link monster, if Rainbow would be sent to the graveyard, you can use Moonbow to summon back a banished Rainbow, if you happen to get into that scenario, but the new monster does allow it. That is it for the monsters of the deck. Now up next are the small drop cards, the ones everyone loves. Of course, 3 copies of the Weather Forecast. This is, or weather report as I've been saying, I've been watching too much JoJo. So basically this is the new card that we've got from the set. When it's activated, place a continuous spell or trap card, the weather card from your deck to field. That means your opponent can't ash this because it only places from deck to field, which is really nice, which is a really nice effect. And then you can also link summon using continuous spawn drop cards you control that are called the weather. So you can link summon with 3 spawn drop cards, the weather canvases from your spawn drop card zone as material, or you can use any number of monsters plus any number of spawn drop cards. And it has another effect, a third effect. We can normal summon another monster in addition to your normal summoner set. So if you would search this off another monster with this snow canvas, you can normal summon snow from your hand, and then of course add another card, which is really nice. After that, we do have 3 copies of the snow canvas. This is of course going to be your main card of the deck, because of course it can search everything in the deck, including the weather forecast. But the main point of this is to be a primary way for you to float out your monsters to evade most effects, most targeting effects, and then you would also search a card with it. So it is an all-around really good card. It doesn't require interaction with the opponent. Just banish the monster until the next standby phase, which will get them out of trouble. Playing 2 copies of the rain canvas. General back row removal, but this is mostly here because I have for the link material that the Footspell offers, and a copy of Cloud Canvas. I only had 1 copy of this, and I'm still probably going to be playing 1 copy of this until I say otherwise, but you can also play 2 copies of this just for the sake of playing the field spell. Use this as link material, but its effect may come up every now and then. And that is it for the spell canvases. So move on to the generic cards. We had 1 copy of Dimensional Fissure, a really good floodgate that a lot of people auto surrender to for some odd reason. I don't know why. 3 copies of Extravagance. Now, this deck would prefer you play Prosperity, but as you know, most of us, including myself, are fairly budgetary players, and so Extravagance is a really nice card to have, just because you get to draw 2, though Prosperity is something you would rather prefer to play in this deck, since you don't want to ruin or get rid of all of your rainbows, though it's very unlikely you would get rid of all of them. 1 copy of Call by the Grave and 1 copy of Terraforming. Of course, Call by the Grave, a normal, common, stable, and Terraforming, search the field spell, which is basically your win condition. Now finally for the main deck, we have the trap cards. I'm playing 3 copies of the Thunder Canvas. The Thunder Canvas is your general battle trap, the one that you're going to be seeing the most out of during late game, which is typically past turn, maybe turn 2 or 3. In a ideal scenario or something, you only really need 2 copies of this. You can replace 1 with a copy of Cloud if you're planning to play Cloud, another copy of Cloud, but I just play 3 because it's a generally common thing to use in here, since most of the time I want to use up all my snows to banish them another monster to the field. It's just a really nice trap card to have. 2 copies of the Rainbow Canvas. Typically, people would try to play 3 of these. You don't need 3 of these, you only need the 2, because once you tag out 1 or 2 weather painters, you've already gotten full value out of this because you have a full board already made. And then finally 1 copy of the Aurora Canvas. I was playing multiple copies of this, but just 1 canvas is really good because now that I'm focusing on the Cloud, you don't have to worry about playing multiple copies of this, and it is just a general little interruption of sorts to your opponent by getting rid of a card that they search from the deck. So there isn't much reason to play multiple copies of it unless you really need to. You maybe slide in 1 other copy of it to be fine and replace a Thunder Canvas. And that is it for the main deck. Now on to the fun part, the extra deck. So of course for the extra deck we have 3 copies of the Weather Painter Rainbow. This is going to be your primary card for the deck, which you're going to be summoning out all the time. So basically what you do is when you link her off with the field spell, she's on board, she gives the effect of to negate a card effect and destroy that card to all the weather painters she points to. So typically if you would use your entire spell trap card zone as link material and you have a Cloud on the field, that means that when your first monster comes back, you will have 2 interruptions plus 2 spawn trap cards on the field to give them bonus effects, which will more likely be Rainbow, which will give an extra monster, and then Snow herself, she can tribute herself to negate the summon of a monster and destroy it. So basically, on turn 1, you can have at least up to 2 to 3 interruptions with just her. And then next up is the new Weather Painter, the Weather Painter Moonbow. She's not as amazing as the Weather Painter Rainbow, but when I was remote dueling the other day, I did happen to bring her up, and she was really nice to be playing against a Moroche player. She gives the effect to Weather Painters to banish themselves and banish an opponent's monster until the standby phase of the next turn, so an entire turn later. And then if she's destroyed, summon out the Rainbow Painter. So this isn't something that you would typically bring out. You're playing 3 of this because you're playing Extravagance and you're playing the Field Spell. In a normal list, you'd probably play like 1 copy of this, maybe 2 copies. Typically 2 copies is fine. This is something that you're going to need in case your opponent already has a board set up, so it's obviously a turn 2 play. But even then, you might not even need it, because if you have Rainbow set up with a few monsters and Thunder Canvas in the field, you don't really have to worry about it too much. Next to the generic cards, we have 1 Avermax, 1 Borreload, your general Link 4 removals, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 copy of Phoenix, just because I always play Nightmare Phoenix, and that's it for the general Link monsters, and of course the Xyz, copy of Zeus, Nightmare Shark, and Totem Bird. So Zeus and Nightmare Shark are not really needed. I just happened to pull a Zeus, but this is a generic slot area, because if you want to just play some general Xyz, then this is where you would typically do it. Nightmare Shark is here to poke directly for 2k in case there's some chance that you need to poke 2k, activate summon Zeus. Total Bird was here when I was playing the Speedroid Terror Top engine. I'm not playing it now, but I do still continue to play it because I do plan to get a lot more clouds. If I have 2 clouds on board, I overlay them into Totem Bird, an extra negate for late game. Then finally we have Stardust Dragon and Cyframe Lord Omega, which will be your Gamma target and something for the side deck, which I will show you in a moment. Now here's the side deck of the deck, which I rarely get to use too often, but it's perfectly fine because that's just how I typically go about it. In the side deck, I'm playing 2 copies of Ghost Over Snow Rabbit, one of my favorite hand traps in the game. 3 Dark Ruler and a Moor, which really rarely ever comes up in me needing it. So it's more or less just here as insurance in case you need to negate everything first, summon Snow or whoever, place the Thunder Canvas, bounce some things back to hand, do the entire play. 3 copies of Mystic Mine, because your monsters do tag out, so of course this is a good way to manage your own board and manage your opponent's board. And then when it's time to get rid of this, you can just drop another weather report over it, or the weather theory, whatever the field spell is called. I constantly forget. Though, don't use this going first. I made that mistake and my opponent just did not play for about like 8 turns, which I don't fully understand because they were going to deck out before me. 3 copies of Rivalry, 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier, which has just been phenomenal this format in all honesty. You really want to play Dimensional Barrier. Even if you can't counter Link monsters, this still counters majority of the good card pool. And then 1 copy of Starlight Road for the Stardust Dragon to negate mass back row. I've used this probably 3 times online. I have yet to use this in a real match. But, it's still here in case people want it. Well guys, that was the weather deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. If you want to continue to see more of these, go ahead, comment down below that you like it, or leave a like, and maybe I might do another one of these showing off my Charmer profile. I hope you all enjoyed. See you all next time.